Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning. I'm going to be your host today. My name is Chris Newsome. I'm with Recruit Military, bringing you another Recruit Military Live. We've got an exciting show for you today, really an exciting guest. He needs little to no introduction, but all the same, I'm going to tee him up. Joining me today is going to be Jack Tilley. Jack Tilley is an Army veteran who served in the United States Army during the Vietnam War with an illustrious career, serving for almost 37 years on the dot. And he reached the highest ranks of leadership and station as far as an Army NCO can, serving in 2000 as the 12th Sergeant Major of the Army. And that is a post that he maintained until his retirement in 2004. He is the last Vietnam veteran to serve within this position, and he is currently serving as the co-founder, chairman, and CEO of the American Freedom Foundation. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Sergeant Major Jack Tilley to the show.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks a lot for letting me on the show there, Chris. I appreciate that. So it wasn't 37 years, it was 36. I don't know, that's must be a typo in my
36. I carried over. I always round up when in doubt.
Okay.
So 36, compared to me as a short timer, anything is impressive beyond my timeline. So an overwhelming thank you for all that you've done for soldiers and all you've done in the military space since taking off the uniform for the last time. So I gave you a little bit of a tee up there, but if you wouldn't mind, would you mind just kind of running through an introduction, just a high level overview, if you can consolidate that 36 years of military service into a handful of talking points? 36, 37. Let's call it 40.
I'm old, man. It takes me a while to get through all that. Well, I'll just tell you, I 16 trips to Afghanistan in and out, 3 in Iraq, was fighting in the streets of Saigon when I was 18 years old, in the Pentagon for 9/11. Overran once, 20 wounded and 7 killed. I've suffered from post-traumatic stress for probably 50 plus years now. I'm married. I just told you a few minutes ago before you came on the show, I have 5 great grandkids, so I've been around quite a while. And I'm a small business owner, and I've been trying to help people with transitioning for probably the last 25 years, about helping them coach, teach, and mentor people out of the military. And the person in my house that's more important than anybody else is my wife, Gloria. She really runs everything, and I'm just her bad guy, just sort of carries the stuff around.
As our better halves tend to do. They carry the weight of the mission. So we have nothing but love and adoration for our military spouse community, and always great to hear another example of one that helps prop up even a phenomenal leader like yourself, who again has achieved the highest station that one can aspire to. There's behind every powerful man, there's always an amazing significant other that's helped us get there. So wonderful shout out to your loving wife there. All right, so before we get into what you're doing now and how you're operating in the military space today, would you mind just going back all those years, around the Vietnam era? What was it that motivated you or compelled you to join the Army, and why the Army?
Well, it's sort of a funny story here. I graduated, wasn't the best kid in the world, probably wasn't the smartest kid in the world either. And I was sitting on a beach, and somebody says, "Hey, what are you going to do with your life?" I was 17 years old when I graduated, and I says, "I have no earthly idea." He said, "You want to go to college?" And I said, "Guys like me don't necessarily go to college." I really didn't have the money. My family didn't have the money to send me to college. I didn't really, we just really could not afford it. And so I said, I can't go. The second guy said, "Hey, you want to join the military?" And I says, "Okay, why not?" I figured that was a way for me to, sort of grow up a little bit, make a little bit of money. And so I went basic AIT jump school, and I was in Vietnam in 6 months after I enlisted in the service. So I had not planned. I didn't know they was fighting a war when I enlisted in the service, but yeah, I just went straight in right after high school, and it was just sort of a fluke. But the neat thing about joining the military, it changed me inside. War changed me a lot. I always tell people I went from 18 years old to 55, but it changed me inside and made me appreciate things a lot more, and it made me understand life a lot more.
Yeah, I think that's a natural byproduct
Yeah.
of service. Not to compare apples and oranges, because I didn't serve in the capacity that you did, but my journey into the Army was very similar. Not 100% sure what was going to happen next. Conflict had just been, brought to our doorstep via 9/11, 2001. And it's an opportunity for us to step outside of our own shoes and be a part of something bigger than ourselves. And I think there's something absolutely invaluable. I think everybody should find a way to get that version of service. It doesn't have to always be military service. It can be, more community oriented, but serving in a capacity bigger than yourself has helped men like you and I kind of frame our perspective. And it does bring about a lot of appreciation for the things that we have and the hard work that has been committed to get to the point where we are today. So, yeah, it's amazing journey. I think we could have an entire show, considerably longer, just going through individual segments of your military career, but we don't have the luxury of that time today. So,
Well, you have something to add right there. What's really funny is when I came back out of Vietnam, and of course you come back and you go to your station you're going to be stationed at, and then you take out like a 30-day leave. And I knew when I went back to my hometown that something had changed in me. When you start going and seeing the guys you hung around with, it was just something was different, and you really did not necessarily fit in, and you
yeah.
didn't want to do the same things you did before. So I wish everybody had to go in the military, but we'll never do that again. But it was really a life-changing thing for me.
Yeah, it's tricky and not all that attractive to go back and pick up exactly where you left off.
No,
In those instances, your buddy's back on the block.
no.
You do change. You're forced into a more mature environment, a zero fail environment, and coming back and trying to be just like it was right when you graduated high school, it's almost impossible. But I think in a healthy way, evolution can be a little uncomfortable sometimes, but I think it's natural and healthy. So fast forwarding to not just today, but the last handful of years, the work that you do with the American Freedom Foundation, your work at Your Next Mission, would you mind just giving the audience a high level overview of what those two entities do relative to the military space, to our veteran community?
Yeah, the last couple of years I was in the service, I wanted to, during Christmas or any time, I wanted to take some entertainment overseas. And so I think it was in 2002 or maybe 2001, I contacted the USO and said, "Hey, look, I'm gonna take up some singers or actors or comedians or whatever overseas." So we worked it all out. I got the money funded, and that's where I met Ted Hacker, the co-founder of American Freedom Foundation.
Good man.
And so we went overseas. We did all this stuff. Really had a great time entertaining our troops over there. And we came back, and when I was going to retire, again, me and Ted got to be really good friends. He worked in the entertainment business, and I called him up after I retired. I said, "Look, I love doing this concerts and stuff like that, and I'd love to do it again. You think there's a way we could team up and start doing shows for the military?" And so we formed the American Freedom Foundation. We did concerts for 10 years, sort of a long story. Did concerts for 10 years, and then really entertained a lot of people. Was able to give away a couple $1 million back to veterans in the veteran community at that time. And so we had a lot of fun. So that's how it really started. And then we spun off into Your Next Mission about 3 years ago. Now, we started this in about 2005. So we've been around quite a while now, but we spun off into Your Next Mission because of COVID. We wanted to make sure that we could reach out and talk to veterans and educate people. Your Next Mission is not just about veterans. It's about educating our country about the sacrifices that our veteran community and their families make for this country. So we started doing concerts, or not concerts, but started doing a podcast. And I said, "That's a great idea." And he says, "Good, you can host it." I said, "Wait a minute, I don't want to host it." Get someone.
Never volunteer. Never volunteer.
I screwed up because I said it was a great idea.
Yeah.
And, so we've been doing that, a few years now. And I think we did 165 shows, and we're starting really to reach a lot of people. About 8.6 million, not just on the show,
Wow.
but on social media.
Okay.
Time frame a little bit more. We're now part of the 1% that's paid on YouTube, so we're making a difference, and we're putting stuff on the show that helps our veteran community with post-traumatic stress or hiring jobs, or we even do hiring events too. We've been doing about 4 or 5 hiring events a year through Your Next Mission for the last probably 10 years. So we're reaching out, trying to do all we can.
That's amazing. Yeah, we here at Recruit Militaries have had the privilege of being a part of a couple of those hiring events, the ones that you have tied through USAA and the Quad A. Yeah, you guys are doing amazing work, and it does take a village. You know, whether you're transitioning now or whether you've already transitioned and you're still in need of certain resources. We are a community. We're a tight knit community, and we take care of each other. And it's always good to work alongside a champion organization like yours. So if we can, you know, as we're
Chris, let me say something real quick. I'm going to tee this. You teed it up for them. We're doing another hiring event. A couple of them is coming up, so I'm going to cue this up right now. We're doing Huntsville for AUSA March 29th, and we're doing one in Denver on the 25th and 26th of April. And all you have to do is go to yournextmission.org to register, so you can find employment. And we want to help families. We want to help people. So please come on out and see us. We'd love to see you and love to help you.
Absolutely. We'll go ahead and we'll make sure that we get a registration link, or at least some information in the chat thread here, so that we can help people streamline their registration. Yes, if you're in those markets, if you're in Huntsville, if you're in Denver, make sure to mark your calendars for those dates that Sergeant Major just referenced. Going back, so you leaned into what you're doing now. You kind of envisioned that as you were going through your last leg of service. So I know that, as you know, again, the highest level of non-commissioned officer that the U.S. Army produces, your transition was probably a little bit different than the average Joe, if you will. But you know, I still feel like everybody, regardless of station, regardless of rank, MOS, there's always going to be some level of struggle or insecurity, discomfort associated with transition. Can you maybe talk to that at all in terms of obstacles that presented themselves to you, and how you overcame them? Like, how does that tie into your network? You know, what kind of support did you have? Was it just from TAP? Were there outside entities? Was your wife a part of it? Would you mind just kind of talking through what your transition experience was like?
Yeah, first of all, my wife's part of everything. I don't
I
know
assume as much.
You know, because especially when you're transitioning, you've got to make sure that your spouse is involved in that entire process. So let me tell you about my transition. So I'm working. I'm trying to clear. I'm trying to do all this stuff, and I'm a soldier just like everybody else. So I said, I'll just schedule me a time. They have TAPS classes, and I'll just go over to the TAPS class and just sit in there with everybody else and get the briefing. And they gave me the date. I got my car, drove over there, walked in like everybody else, sitting there. And I sat there for 1 hour, and I realized that this was not necessarily geared for me. Because at the time, they was just throwing everybody, you know, whether or not you was an E-89 private, I mean, all of and officers, everybody in the one spot. So I said, I got up, went back, called the guy at TAPS, and said, hey, look, send the guy that's giving the classes over to my office. I had that authority then. I was, I felt like, hey, I could get you to come over here. And he came into my office and he said, hey, look, Sergeant Major, what do you need? I said, well, tell me what I need to retire. And really, I didn't even know how. He asked me a question. He says, how much do you think you're worth? And I said, I don't know, $50,000. I didn't know what the prices are. So we went through the, sort of give me some ideas, make sure I had a resume, talked about all that stuff. And really that was sort of it. And I did my medical stuff and all. And I'll tell you the other thing I did, which is really sort of stupid, but I didn't even apply. I mean, I did my physical, but I didn't submit it to the VA. So when I retired, I got all zeros as far as disability. I think I got like 11 or 12 zeros or 8 or 9. I can't remember. And about 5 years after I'm out, I went back and applied for disability from the military. I don't know why I didn't do it then. But what happened to me is I got out, moved to Florida, built a house. Took a few months to, we'd already started for us even getting out of the service, started building the house. And once we moved into the house, and this has been like 3 or 4 months, and, I'm fully retired now. And then one day my wife looked at me and said, don't you have something to do? You need to get out of the house. right? I'm
Already
just
kicking you out. You just moved in and she's already kicking you out.
she didn't want me around no more. And, and the other thing is, there was people reaching out to me and asking me to come and do certain things for them and stuff. So I got a job. I won't tell you the company, but I had, in fact, it was in Huntsville though. I got a job in a guy in Huntsville, nice fella. I worked for him for about 5 or 6 months. Never went to the office. Never talked to anybody. He paid me a pretty good salary every month, but I didn't like what I was doing. I wasn't doing anything. And at that time, I said, "Hey, look, the only way for me to really feel good about myself is really start doing consulting work." And I'd been doing it a little bit when I was working with him. So I went up and I had about, this is a long story. I apologize, but I went up. I had
No,
about 8 or 9 clients that I was working with, and I was making a pretty good salary with doing that. But one more problem I had, I didn't realize they had a lot of taxes there. And so, I paid an enormous bill on taxes. And so I finally worked through that stuff. I incorporated myself. I became a small business. And so for probably 5 to 8 years, I did nothing but consultant work and made real good money. And then one day, a guy from one of the universities reached out to me and said, "I'd love to talk to you about maybe helping our university." And so I said, "Okay." So I went to Lauderdale, me and Sergeant Major Myers, Johnny Myers, and went down and sit down with the owner or one of the leadership in the university. And he said, "We would like to do this in the university field. Can you help us?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I can help you." So we signed a contract, come to an agreement. I hired a few people, and we started doing it. So I've been working with, really it's Purdue and Kaplan University. And I've been working with them for, God, I guess 15 years or something like that. It's sort of a long time. And then that sort of kicked off. Then I had another university reach out to me. I did the same thing with them. So I have 2 different crews of people that work with different schools. And so it all turned out sort of okay for me. But the one thing I really did not feel good about is I really struggled about just sort of fitting in. It sort of sounds funny. I mean, I didn't, even today, I'm not sure I really fit in. I felt uncomfortable. People talk about the military and they're not served. Or you talk to them about the military, and then a lot of times they'll change the subject and talk about something else. And so I just found I just threw myself into work. I work all the time. I'm always doing something. Saturdays and Sundays, I'm working stuff off. If I'm not working, I'm playing golf if I can do that. So that's sort of my transition. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't perfect.
sure.
If I had, I don't know if you're going to ask me about advice. Go ahead, Chris. That's sort of too much right there already.
No, no, no. I mean, I love where this is going. There's layers to that. One of the first things that that stands out to me was the first role that you got, where despite what seemed like healthy compensation, purpose. You weren't passionate about it. And, the unsolicited advice that I would offer, in conjunction with Sergeant Major Tilley here to the audience is find something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And Sergeant Major's speaking from experience. I'm speaking from experience. If you're still in uniform now, it's going to be kind of hard to follow something that gives you the same level of purpose. It's almost an extreme purpose when you're in uniform. You are serving at a level that's beyond yourself. You have personnel in your command, or your mission is just, it's big. It's really hard to replicate that in a lot of different organizations. So what we want to try to encourage people to do is really do that homework, do that soul searching, ask yourself what gets you motivated, what's going to get you excited when your feet hit the floor every morning. Find a role that's going to give you that fulfillment. Otherwise, you're going to end up in that position. And Sergeant Major, I was in the same position with a number of jobs when I first transitioned out. It's really hard to replicate that purpose. So do the due diligence, make sure that you're investigating the organization, you're reaching out to individuals that already work there, get an understanding of their culture, of work-life balance, not just the compensation and the benefits. That's something that you definitely need to look at, but there are other elements that are going to make you more fundamentally happy and have your cup more filled. So purpose is a big thing. And then you mentioned, having a couple people as far as your network. Can you talk at all about the importance of that network. And then, I'd like to bleed that directly into recommendations relative to transition, and how do you build your network, and how can we do that in a general way when we're talking about people that have, it's a wide spectrum of transition. Some are serving 4 years, some are serving 34 years. So, but the same theme is true. Networking, it's very important. It's social capital. What advice do you have to anybody listening as it relates to building one's network and leveraging that network?
Well, let me go back a little bit about transition first, though. The other thing I wish I would have said was that make sure you have a mentor, a sponsor, before you get out of the service. Somebody that can coach and teach. I get calls from not 4-star, but at least the highest ones, I guess, been a 3 stars, a few 2 stars, and senior NCOs that'll contact, say, hey, would you coach and teach me, give us some ideas? So they call me and say, look, do you mind if we talk about this for a second? What did you do about this? And so find you a coach or a mentor to help you in that process. I mean, I know we're going to talk about when you should start that. But the other thing about networking, it really is the key to success. I used to tell people when I was in the military, if somebody gives you a business card, keep it, right? Make sure you keep that business card. Now you just slap your phones together. You got all that contact information, whatever you want to do. But yeah, networking, meeting people, talking to people, be socially active with people, get out there and talk to the communities, talk to the people around you, know the people, show them your qualifications. One of the hardest things is making sure people get out of that military jargon and just start talking about what the civilians are doing. Don't use acronyms and all that other stuff. Just get out and network and just be socially active. The other thing is, I'm not I guess the first computer I ever had, not computer, but yeah, I guess it probably was a computer, was maybe a battalion sergeant major.
Okay.
First time I ever had a computer, and I just emails and do all that other stuff. But social media is really a big one. LinkedIn, Facebook, and all that stuff. And people, I was speaking the other day, and there was a 2 or 3 star there. So, no, don't get on social media. I said, well, if you don't get on social media, you're not going to communicate with anybody, unless you do it through emails or just write them a letter or something. You got to figure out how to work that process. On social media, on LinkedIn, I have like 12,000 followers, I think, right now. Facebook, I have about 5,000 or 6,000. And you got to be selective. I don't connect with anybody that doesn't have, well, a few people, I'm sure, but most people I connect with have a military background. But that social media is a really pretty good. I got to tell you a quick story about that. I had a guy that contacted me from Joint Base Lewis McChord. I don't know if they changed the name here, but
it's still JBLM.
Okay. So they contacted me and say, hey, look, I see that you're connected with this guy on social media on LinkedIn. And I knew the guy, I can't remember his name, but he says, hey, what kind of guy is it? I said, well, I don't really know. He said, well, you connect. I said, well, give me a chance to check it out. I'll call you back. I'll get a hold of you. So I went in, got hold of this guy, got his number, said I want to talk to you. Call him on the phone, start talking to him, and realized that I had known him. I'd known him for years. And he was a great guy. And I said, hey, look, what are you doing up at Fort Lewis or Joe Base Lewis McChord? So he told me everything he's doing. He said, out of the blue, you call me, what for? I said, I'm just sort of curious about what you're doing. I appreciate it. And I understand you're looking for a job too. And he said, yeah. So we talked a little bit about that. Great conversation. That 15 or 20 minutes, hung up, called the guy back and said, hey, look, I just talked to him. This guy is the guy that you need to hire. He's a perfect guy. He'll be an asset to your organization, and all the positive things about. So I hung up, and probably an hour and a half later, same guy that I'd called calls me back. He says, "I don't know what you do, but I don't know what you did, but I got a job." So it really, it's about people that know you and trust you and have confidence in you are going to reach out to you and ask all these crazy questions. So. It's a crazy world, but we can help each other out. The other thing I think is really important is helping each other out, making sure that if you see another veteran out there that's struggling, put your arm around and do whatever you can to help them out, because we have a lot of veterans that are out there. And I talked about the suicides and all the rest of this stuff, but a lot of them are struggling, and we just got to reach and put your arms around and give them a hug and do whatever you can to help them out. So that's probably, again, probably too much, but I'm excited
No,
about
no,
helping
but
transition.
that's actually perfect. That's the perfect amount. And I think it's a great theme because it ties perfectly into, we're talking about a network here, building your network, acquiring that social capital, um, you know, being open to connecting with new people, having new conversations, and keeping and maintaining those relationships. Um, it can be the difference between some of our brothers and sisters. And it's one thing for us to be willing to put an olive branch out there to reach out and to offer help, but it's another thing that I want to try to compel anybody listening. If you are struggling with anything, for that
Yeah.
matter, you don't have to be in dire straits necessarily, but if you're struggling at all, whether it's you need to find a mentor or you're looking for the next great opportunity, network. Be willing to be vulnerable sometimes. Put yourself out there. We take care of each other and we're a tight-knit community, and there's a lot of assets and resources that we all bring to bear, and when we work together, it's pretty amazing the things that we can do on a grand scale and for each other as individuals. So don't be shy or too proud to ask for help if you need some help, and also be willing to offer the help.
Yeah, well, I think the other thing, Chris, is you got to be a good listener and a good communicator. You got to make sure that if somebody comes to you and they're stressed out, let them talk, let them work their stuff out. And sometimes that 30-second engagement is really important. Going up and just sort of patting somebody on the back, how you doing, how you feeling, all that other stuff. We had a person on our show on Your Next Mission, and we talked about suicides a lot on that particular series we had right there. And I asked her, I says, do you think you should ask people if they're considering suicide? She said, yes. So if you have somebody around you that's really troubled and you don't know what it is, and their attitude has changed for some reason, ask them what's wrong and how can you help? If they know that you care and they trust you, it's a big, I had a guy that was, this is how far this goes back, I was a first sergeant in Korea that he'd lost his wife, the kids wasn't talking to him. And a friend of mine comes and says, I know you know this guy, and he has a lot of respect for you, which is good. And he said he's really struggling. Would you call him and talk? So I did. I called him and talked to him and just told him to say, look, everybody goes through struggles. There's no locked in on people that don't have issues. Everybody's got issues. And let me know if I can help. So we talked for about 40 minutes about stuff, and he was telling about his wife. He just, recently divorced, and the kids were struggling. He was all by himself, and he's just going through a bad time in his life. And I said, hey, look, in the military, we're all part of a family. If you're struggling, I'm struggling, I'll do what I can to help you. And so now he texts me and I text him back, and we talk a little bit back and forth, but he knows somebody cares about him.
Yeah, and sometimes that's all it takes. You feel like you're alone, you feel like you're isolated, and again, like going back to the theme of building your network here, when you transition, it's almost like the rug getting yanked out from under your feet.
Oh, yeah.
You're going from this you have camaraderie. You are surrounded by like-minded individuals that have shared experience. You really feel part of that community, that brother or sisterhood, whatever it is within your capacity of service. And when you get back home, you're separated from that as well. And I think that's why folks like us and folks within our community, we tend to gravitate towards other service members, other prior service members, because you have that shared experience and that sense of community. So yeah, no matter what,
The other thing is, it doesn't matter what service you're in. We're all
right,
veterans.
right. It transcends.
That's right. It doesn't matter if you're a private or a general. When you get out, you're all veterans. You're all helping each other out.
Yeah, 100% agreed. All right. Well, we are pretty much at time at this point, Sergeant Major. So before I thank you for joining us and everything that you've done in uniform and since taking off the uniform in this community, you can double tap it. But do you have one piece of advice that you would offer somebody that's going through the transition right now? If we want to go back to mentorship, I think that's always a topic worthy of double tapping. But
Yeah.
what advice would you offer for a service member going through that process now?
Well, I probably got a whole bunch of them. Again, real quick. Start it early enough. And the other interesting thing is 90% of the people that serve in the military only stay six years in the service. That 10% is the retirees and stuff. But if whether or not you stay 6 years or 36 years, make sure you start that process at least 2 years out and get yourself a mentor. I think everybody, when they come into the service, ought to start a resume when you first initially come in and continue to build on that resume as you go on. The last thing I'll tell you real quick, get your education or get certified. And no, I should say last is not that. Networking is the key to success. Make sure you open up that channel and communicate with just as many people as you can.
Absolutely. That's phenomenal advice, Sergeant Major. Can't thank you enough for your time, for your wisdom, sharing your experience with us. Would love to have you back on the show again at a future date. For those listening, again, please don't forget, go to American Freedom Foundation, go to Your Next Mission. You can Google it very easily. The Sergeant Major has an ongoing podcast, great episodes, great interview guests. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Make sure to mark your calendars for those dates. Again, if they're not already in the chat, we will get them added. Huntsville and Denver coming up in the immediate future. Do you want to rattle off those dates one more time for us,
Yeah,
Sergeant Major?
I'll give you the dates again. I'm looking right. Huntsville is March 29th, and then Denver is 25, 26 April. And you should go to yournextmission.org and register.
Roger that. And our social media manager just confirmed it is in the chat. So if you're watching, listening, comb through that chat, find those links, and make sure you can join us out there in the field. Sergeant Major Tilley, it's been an honor and a pleasure chatting with you. I appreciate you joining us. And to everybody else out there, from Recruit Military, we're here to support you with your employment endeavors. Don't forget to create your profile at recruitmilitary.com, and we'll see you out there. All right.
Hoorah! One team.
Thank you, Sergeant Major. Who indeed.
All right.